Since releasing the original Float X Evol back in 2005, Fox Racing has grown to become one of, if not the most popular shock manufacturer in ATV racing. Many factors have contributed to their success. To start, they've won the most coveted motocross title every year since they hit the market with the Evol back in 2005, splitting championships between the ATVA and WPSA series. They also have a number of wins and championships under their belt in the GNCC series, most recently with Suzuki's Chris Borich. In 2010 alone, Fox Racing won a total of 10 major pro ATV titles. Along with winning on the track, Fox has also become a winner in the pits, operating a large trackside support program, offering assistance for free at ATVA, Works, and every other round of the GNCC series. Should your shocks need service after a race or before next season, make sure you send them into Fox for servicing before your next event. Trackside support is there for setup, not for general maintenance. To keep your shocks working at peak performance, Fox recommends that you send them in occasionally for routine maintenance. Generation 1 shock owners can send in their shocks for a rebuild and receive Generation 2's low friction seals and graphics kit installed at no extra charge. Generation 1 Evol owners can also have their shocks upgraded from single to dual rate compression adjustment for a very reasonable $240. Compared to standard coil spring shocks, Fox floats have several advantages. First, by utilizing air pressure instead of springs, they are nearly infinitely adjustable. Secondly, they are extremely light, saving you several pounds per front shock.
Hi, I'm Dave Trimble with Trimble Motorsports and ATVOnDemand.com. Today we're going to do our install, setup, and our first test with the Fox Float Evol Generation 2 front shocks and the Fox Podium X rear shock. Fox definitely builds a high-end quality shock, and it's obvious right down to the way they package it. Fully encased in foam, reservoir off to the side, any other material, mounting hardware, and a nice separate box on the side.
The Float X Evols feature two separate air chambers: the main air chamber, which controls spring rate and ride height, and the Evol chamber, which controls body roll and bottoming resistance. Damping is handled by a conventional piston and shim stack design. The latest generation Evols feature externally adjustable high and low speed compression, along with rebound damping. Fox includes a purpose-built air pump with the Evols, featuring two pressure gauges built in, one for the Evol chamber and one for the main chamber, which measures in closer increments. While the performance of the Podium X rear shock is often overlooked, it too won all of those motocross and cross-country championships. The Podium X features a more conventional coil spring design with a threaded preload taking care of ride height adjustments. A piston and shim stack control the shock's damping, while it can be tuned externally with high and low speed compression and rebound adjusters. Unlike the piggyback reservoirs on the Evols, for our application, our Podium X came equipped with a remote reservoir. Instead of attaching the reservoir to the machine with cumbersome rubber spacers and hose clamps, Fox supplies you with a trick aluminum mounting bracket, which attaches to the subframe where the grab bar bolts up. Dave's 450R was already equipped with Walsh Race Craft +3 Flow A-arms, along with our EasyLink swing arm and linkage. Walsh Race Craft chassis components are regarded as some of the most durable and well-designed among top-level racers, leaving us with no concern about chassis component quality. Once your shocks are installed, the fronts take just a bit of setup before they're ready to ride. You begin by pressurizing the main chamber first. Fox says typically, riders run between 25 and 50 pounds in the main chamber and should never exceed 100 pounds of pressure. For 190-pound Dave Trimble, we started off with 40 pounds. Next, you add air to the Evol chamber. Fox says that the typical rider runs between 100 and 200 pounds in the Evol chamber and should never exceed 300 pounds. We set Dave up with 150 pounds of pressure. Once your air pressure is set, it's time to check your ATV's ride height.
Once you get your bike on the ground, it's time to check your ride height. It's best to have a friend help you do this. You want to have your rider in full gear sitting in the center of the bike. And what you want to do is you want to come down here with the rider on the bike, measure at this point and this point. We want 7 1/4 was Fox recommendations for motocross on the Honda 450. 7 1/4 in the front, 7 in the rear.
If you need to raise or lower either end, it's done by adding or removing preload from the rear shock spring, or adding or removing air from the front shock's main air chambers. Just make sure you're running equal pressure in both front shocks. Needing to test our newly installed shocks, with winter lingering and the national season fast approaching, we headed to Early Wines Indoor Motocross in Maysville, Kentucky, a hotbed for cold weather riding that is extremely ATV friendly. The Fox shocks welcome the track, providing the typically pillowy plush ride that they're famous for. Having taken much of the winter off due to injury, the shocks were extremely forgiving, as Dave dealt with mistakes caused by a lack of practice while learning the track. After making a few compression and rebound changes, Dave had the shocks pretty well dialed in with minimal setup time after install. Both ends happily dealt with under or over jumping, sticking every landing in a plush forgiving manner. It appeared to use all of the front end's travel on a few poorly landed jumps, but Dave said he never felt a bottoming sensation. Obviously, the shocks were dialed in for error.
We performed our first test with Fox shocks at Early Wines Indoor Track in Maysville, Kentucky. Overall, the track's very smooth, so it's kind of hard to get a feel exactly what the shocks were doing. We intentionally came up short on a couple jumps, flat landed, just to see what the shocks would do. Didn't feel any bottoming. The fronts were very smooth. The back came set up, I feel, properly. Overall, pleased with the performance of the shocks on the first day.
As Dave's riding smoothed out, the shocks continued to impress us with their suppleness. On a good landing, you barely feel the front tires come in contact with the ground, due to the good small bump absorption qualities that Fox Float Evols are famous for.
The great thing with the Fox shocks is, with the infinite adjustability, is that you can get them to work with the big jumps as well as the small jumps. Very smooth all the way through the stroke, and with the coilover shock, it seems like you get them working good on the big stuff, then the small stuff takes an effect that you lose that capability there.
It's the Evol's ability to resist bottoming, yet eat up all of the small imperfections in the track that wear you out in the 20-minute moto that make them so incredible. The Podium X rear shock performed perfectly at Early Wines, and the front shocks were 95% there as well. The only change that we might make to the front shocks going forward on this track is adding another 5 to 10 pounds to the Evol chamber for a little more body roll resistance. This is a much easier process than adjusting out body roll on a coil spring front shock. Motocrossers and cross-country racers who purchase the correct twin machines for their application can transform them into phenomenal handling ATVs by simply bolting a set of Fox shocks onto their stock chassis components. The only drawback we found with these shocks is that you need to check the air pressure in the fronts before each ride. Trust us though, the payoff is worth a minute of effort. So far, we love these shocks. We've loved them from previous experiences and can't wait to take them out to the nastiest, roughest outdoor motocross track we can find to give them a real workout. Look for a follow-up outdoor track test coming early summer 2011. For more information on Fox Racing Shox's entire line of ATV, side-by-side, mountain bike, and other suspension applications, log on to foxracingshox.com.